do we have all the jurors back?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring them back in. State recognized presence of the jury.
We do, Your Honor.
Defense.
Yes, Your Honor.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are y'all doing this morning? All right. Did anybody watch the local news last night? No. Anybody look at the internet, Facebook? Anybody try to talk to you about the case? Has anybody seen, heard anything at all about this case since you began serving as jurors? All right. Thank you very much. As I said, we're going to finish up testimony this morning, and once we're done with that, I'll give you a better idea of the rest of the day's schedule. State, you may call your next witness.
Today calls Christopher Vargas.
I do.
You may inquire.
Could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
Christopher Vargas, Vargas.
And Mr. Vargas, where are you currently employed?
Yes.
And where at?
Oh, Bars and Brew on Samaron.
Okay. And how old are you?
I am 24 years old.
In what neighborhood do you currently live, or what street do you live on?
Kempston Drive.
Who lives with you?
My mother, my brother, my son, my brother's girlfriend, my girlfriend, and my other son.
Okay. How long have you lived on that Kempston Drive address?
About 5-6 years.
Now, was there a time in your life when you came to meet a woman named Elena Ortega?
Yes.
When did do you know when you first met her?
Yes, it was actually with my best friend. He was mowing her grass, and I was going to meet him, and that's how I got to know her.
Right. So, did your best friend live close to her?
Yes, right next door.
Right next door.
Yes.
And how old were you when you first met her? Would you put it this way? Were you still in high school?
Yes, definitely was still in high school.
So your best friend mowed Miss Ortega's grass, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
At some point, did you end up speaking to her?
Yes.
How did that happen?
It was, I would think it was my friend was mowing the grass and she spoke Spanish, so I basically just talked to her while he was mowing the grass. That's pretty much how I would think I would started talking to her,
Yes, sir?
just so I could help him out how to like talk to each other because she didn't know too much English.
Okay. After that initial conversation, did your relationship develop a little bit?
Definitely, yes.
Go ahead.
I got to know her a lot more. I got to meet her daughter, her daughter's husband, basically a lot of her family members I got to meet from that part.
Were there times that you were invited into her home?
Yes, definitely.
What did you call her?
I called her like my grandma, basically. She was family to me. She was everything to me. I basically did a lot of her chores that she couldn't do. I got her medicine. I paid her bills. I did a lot.
Okay, and she asked you to do these things?
Yes.
Did that happen right away, or did that take some time?
No, that took time, definitely. That took her to get to know me and get to trust me.
Did you ever clean her house?
Definitely, yes.
What kind of a house cleaning did you do for her?
I would mop her floors. I would do her laundry. I would sweep. I would take out the dust from her chandeliers and all that because she just wanted everything to be precise.
Okay. Now, did she pay you for these things?
I sometimes didn't want to get paid because I just did it from the heart, but she would insist on me getting money, yes.
Okay. And were there times where you helped her get money in the form of money orders?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How would that work?
I would go to AmSquad. I would get money to pay her bills and stuff like that.
Now, do you know if she kept any cash in her house?
No, I definitely don't.
Did she ever tell you anything about where she put money or where she had money?
No, sir. No, sir.
I asked you about knowing Miss Elena Ortega. Did you know a person, or do you know a person named Jenny Gutierrez?
I don't recall that name, no.
Now, did there come a day, Mr. Vargas, where you learned that something had happened to Elena Ortega?
I actually was literally going to the store, and that's how I found out that there was an incident at the house, and I got to be with her daughter at the same time that we found out that she had passed away, and that's how I got to know what happened.
Now, you said you were going to the store. Did you have a car?
No, sir.
So how did you get around when you were helping Miss Ortega?
I would ride my bike. I ride BMX, so I would ride my bike around the neighborhood.
And were you riding your bike that morning?
Yes, sir.
You found out something happened?
Yes, sir.
How did it make you feel that something happened to her?
It devastated.
Sustain.
Judge, can you approach on that?
Well, actually, no. Yes, come on. Overruled. You can proceed.
Let me restate my question, Mr. Vargas. How did you feel when you found out that Miss Ortega died?
It devastated me, and I started crying with her daughter, and I just couldn't believe what had happened. It was shocking to me.
Did you eventually meet with a detective who interviewed you about where you were?
Yes, right then and then I got to talk to the detectives right then.
Where were you the night before you found out that she had died, or that morning?
I was home.
Mr. Vargas, it's been suggested that you murdered Elena Ortega. Did you do that?
No, sir. No, sir.
Overruled.
No, sir. Not at all.
What's the other questions?
Cross.
What did you say your address was?
It's Kempston Drive.
You ever live on Turnston?
Yes, sir.
That's in a trailer park,
Yes, sir.
and that's near, a few blocks away from Ms. Ortega's house.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Ortega will give you cash money to go buy money orders.
Yes, sir.
You wouldn't see where she got the cash money?
No, sir, not at all. I would wait outside.
Was there anybody else that she would give money to go purchase something?
No, it was me.
Just you?
Yes, sir.
I have another question.
Redirect.
No redirect.
May this witness be excused.
He is excused and released.
Thank you, Mr. Vargas. You're free to go.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. State calls Elena Wilson.
You may inquire.
Good morning.
Please tell us your name again.
Elena Wilson.
Ms. Wilson, you testified yesterday. Is that true?
I did the day before.
I'm sorry, the day before. And are you the daughter of Elena Ortega?
Yes, I am.
Ma'am, I have some items that I want to show you today, okay? Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Ma'am, I'm showing you what's been entered into state evidence and Exhibit 28. I'm going to take it out of the packaging, and you tell me if you recognize this item.
It's my mom's makeup bag. She always bring it to my home, and I always saw it on top of the dresser when she came to see me, and she always had to have a makeup bag with her. She always told me that I always have to put my makeup in makeup bags. So that was her bag.
You may.
And I'm now approaching with what's been entered into evidence to the state's 29. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the bag with the contents right in front of you, and you tell me if you recognize anything, okay? And do you recognize those items?
Can I touch?
I have gloves on, so let me touch it, but specifically recognize this item. Want me to turn it over?
It's my mother's library card.
That's your mother's library card? And did she carry that with her?
Yeah, she had it in her wallet. She always wanted to learn how to speak English, so that was the first thing to go to the library. And those were, she always had that as well, with her toothbrush in her makeup.
So the toothpaste and the toothbrush she would keep with her in her
Yes.
makeup bag?
Yes.
Recognize these items?
My glasses.
Oh, absolutely. Do you know where they are?
In my wallet, in my purse.
And is it posted in the hallway?
Yes, ma'am.
Just visit.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm taking a nice bag right now.
I don't recognize the signs.
No, that and the toothbrush.
Okay, so
And what is it? I don't recognize it either.
okay. So your mom's library card.
Of course, he has her name on it and her address. It's my mom.
And the toothbrush and the toothpaste.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you know, all those things are so dear to me.
And then there's just one final item.
Yes, ma'am.
And now I'll show you, this very briefly, entering the evidence, the state's 27. I'm going to do the same thing, I'm going to take it out of the envelopes and charge you. You tell me if you recognize it. You recognize that item?
I do.
How is
It
it?
says, Love Caesar. If you open it, it's for 2 pictures. And then on the other side, it has kind of like a flower. Yeah. And that actually was mine. One of my first boyfriends gave it to me. His name was Cesar Santangelo. When I was in high school, she said that I never kept things. I always like lose them and everything. So she wanted to keep some of my things with her, and she said one day she was going to give them to me.
And so she kept this at her
Even
house?
she kept that and a lot of other things that belonged to me just because she wanted to make sure she could give it to me later. Because she knew she was going to keep it for me in a safe place. My mother came from Cuba with nothing, and she worked so hard for everything and kept everything so good in her home, you know. And I lost I don't have much from her because of the fires, so can I get some of those things back?
We'll talk about that. Okay. I don't have any more questions. I don't have anything else to share. Thank you. No further questions, John.
Ms. Wilson, why don't you take a minute, and then Mr. Whedon, if you have any cross.
No questions, sir.
All right. Ms. Wilson, you can step down, ma'am. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Your respectful arrest.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to talk to the lawyers for a few moments. You have plenty of time to make a pot of coffee if you want. All right. I'll see you back in a few minutes.
There is exit.
Mr. Whedon, are you doing the JOA? State's arrested.
Judge, I wanted to, I had, when after Janet Gutierrez, after she testified, and I requested she not be released.
Correct.
I think they said that as well. I need to talk to her for just 1 second. I'm not, well, I guess.
Before you do the JOA?
JOA, no, you're right, JOA first, okay.
I'm going to
So-
give you time to talk to her, but
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
So, Mr. Rosario was charged with attempted first degree, he's charged with murder, premeditated murder, first degree by indictment and arson. And we don't have a single witness to testify as to what any observations about what happened in the Ortega home. So my first argument, Judge, is no evidence of premeditation in this case. And in the absence of any evidence of premeditation, that count in the indictment should fail.
I'm going to, for the record purposes, I'm going to have you make the argument and state respond to that one. Go ahead. You were done with that argument, Mr. Williams? Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Your Honor, there is direct evidence of premeditation and of Mr. Rosario's participation in commission of this murder. He told Janet Gutierrez that he had robbed an old lady and he struck her repeatedly until she was unconscious, and then said he was going back to kill her and set the house on fire. The medical examiner testified that the cause of death was not only blunt force trauma to the head and the results thereof, but also a contributory factor was a carbon monoxide level in her body that was a result of her breathing in smoke inhalation. The premeditation is easily established not only from his statements, but from the multiple blows. The medical examiner testified that there were at least three separate blows delivered to her skull, the blunt object, and when in combination with the fact that she was struck with what the medical examiner testified could possibly be a fist to the face, be the state's contention that there were at least 4 blows. In addition to Mr. Rosario telling Janet Gutierrez that she told him, quote, "You don't have to do this," indicating that he had a moment's notice or a moment break in time where she was conscious before she was struck.
You get the last word on this one. Go ahead.
I would just rest a moment, Judge.
Court finds, viewed in the light most favorable to the state, that the state has established a prima facie case of premeditation. As noted by Mr. Williams, we have the statements testified to by Ms. Gutierrez of the defendant himself, saying first that he had a conversation with the victim wherein she said, "You don't have to do this." He then struck her anyway. There was further testimony that Mr. Rosario told Ms. Gutierrez that he needed to go back to the house and set fire to it and kill the victim in this case. There were other statements Ms. Gutierrez made about what Mr. Rosario said to her that would establish premeditation if the jury believes her. So at this point, states met their burden. Motion for judgment of acquittal on that issue is denied. Next.
Judge, I suppose I should address the issue of felony murder, even though I'm still maintaining my objection that even going forward on that issue.
Correct.
And that would be on the, if they're relying upon felony murder in this case, there's been no evidence that Mr. Rosario entered the home with the intent to commit a crime.
Mr. Williams' response.
Ms. Gutierrez, Your Honor, testified that the defendant wanted money that night before he spoke to her. He had left the home. He also returned to his residence with items of property from the victim. The statements and the items in combination indicate that he had intended to commit the offense of theft inside the home. There is no evidence of entry, and as I asked for the instruction from the court, I believe that does entitle the state to presumption of the intention that he intended to commit the offense therein. He also, we know he entered into the home because he told the witness, Janet Gutierrez, that he had been inside the home and struck her. And obviously there's been testimony that it was her residence and that he did not live there.
Thank you. Anything further on that issue, Mr. Whedon?
No.
All right, at this time, the court finds that the state, viewed in the light most favorable to the state, the evidence at this time does establish a prima facie case of the burglary, the possession of the property, gives the state a presumption of it. Janet Gutierrez testified he came back with the victim's belongings in the floral suitcase, 3 floral suitcases. The belongings have been identified as belonging to Miss Elena Ortega. So at this time, the judgment of acquittal on that issue is denied.
Judge, on the issue of arson of an occupied structure, if we're going to accept Ms. Gutierrez's testimony that Mr. Rosario had gone back to set the fire to destroy evidence, and that he had discovered, based on her testimony, that she had passed, then I would argue that the occupied element of that would not be sufficient to sustain arson of an occupied structure.
Response?
I don't know, I heard that the occupation has to be by a live person. I don't think the statute defines that, but I don't think it matters, because even if he believed she was dead, the medical examiner's testimony was that she was still alive at the time. So the testimony in its totality with Ms. Gutierrez is that Mr. Rosario told Ms. Gutierrez that he was going back to set the fire, indicating that he was in fact going to do that, and that she was still alive when the fire was set. He obviously knew a person was inside the residence, because that was his stated purpose for going back to set the fire. And the fire marshal testified as to 3 separate points of ignition, and that was an intentionally set fire. That's court did deny the motion for JOA for that count.
Any further argument on that count, Mr. Reed? The court finds at this time that, viewed in the light most favorable to the state has established a prima facie case of arson to an occupied structure. The medical examiner established that Ms. Ortega was alive and breathing because she had soot in her trachea, so she had to have taken some breaths after the fire was set. I've never heard or ruled on the issue of whether a person has to be alive inside the occupied structure, but the medical examiner establishes she was alive, so I believe, again, based on Janet Gutierrez's testimony, the medical examiner's testimony, and the testimony of the fire expert who said this fire was deliberately set, the state's met their burden at this stage, so the motion for judgment of acquittal on that count is denied. Anything further?
No.
Your Honor, may I confer
You may.
for one moment?
Sure.
Your Honor, we don't have any further argument on that, on the motion for JOA. Mr. DeVilla brought up an issue about the juror that may have been somewhat distraught or emotionally impacted by this Wilson's testimony. I didn't observe that.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Your Honor, we understand the testimony was very emotional. She was crying and sobbing, maybe mourning, call it. There was one juror who was crying along with her, and I think the court observed that.
You
She
did?
was not merely a tear. I think she was dabbing her eyes and blowing her nose. I think at this point she might not be the best juror for this case. I believe that based on the emotions, she won't be able to render.
Are you asking me to strike a juror?
That's what I'm asking.
You need to identify the juror for the record by badge number, please.
Your Honor, the seat number 4, this is here.
Seat number 4 in what row, Mr.
Your Honor, I don't know if this is the first row or the second row.
That's the second row.
The second
We'll just
row.
call it the middle row. How about that?
I believe it was seat number 4 from this side, 1, 2, 3, 4.
447. You're asking me to strike juror 447?
Well, Judge, perhaps the court wants to inquire, bring it in so we can make sure that that's right. Juror?
Stay with your position on this.
Get the requirement of the juror. Why would we inquire of the juror? There's been no legal grounds for her dismissal. It was emotional testimony. Jurors are people. Jurors get emotional. So unless there's some record evidence that beyond the fact that she was crying, which I did observe myself, I don't believe there's any legal grounds to inquire of her whatsoever. So we would object to that.
For the record, she's actually not the only juror who was crying. The court observed at least one other, potentially two. I was trying not to make too much eye contact with them during that time. The juror in the third seat in the front row was crying. Third seat from the defense table over was also crying. Do you have any case law that says that just because a juror is crying, I have to inquire of them? I honestly have never heard of that.
Well, I don't, Your Honor, but I would say, I would ask the court to, because I didn't focus on the jury, I was only focused on the witness.
Right.
I don't have any personal observation, don't tell the court that, but I understand that she was more than crying, that she was sobbing and dabbing her eyes. I would ask the court to inquire of her if that testimony was such an emotional impact and would render her ability to remain fair and impartial.
I need to know what legal authority I have to do that. I mean, I've seen jurors react emotionally to emotional testimony before. I've seen some case law on jurors who become physically ill when seeing autopsy photographs, but I've never seen anything about a juror crying. That's why I'm asking you, is there some case law that indicates that this is a problem? Because I don't know of any.
I would submit it within Your Honor's discretion to make a further inquiry of her based on your observation.
I didn't observe her sobbing, to be honest with you. I'm not saying she wasn't, I just didn't see that. I noted the juror in the front row. I did note that she was, dabbing her eyes, and she was crying during the testimony of Ms. Wilson, but I didn't hear or see her sobbing. I'm not saying she didn't, I just didn't see it. And then I thought there was another juror crying, but honestly, I can't remember. Here's what I'm going to do on that. At this moment, I'm not comfortable inquiring. I will give you all some time to give me some case law, and I'll look myself to see. I mean, getting into asking questions of jurors simply because they're reacting to testimony is opening a dangerous door. So I will give you some time on that, since we're not going to really start openings probably until after lunch. So, okay. You wanted to talk to Ms. Gutierrez before you made a decision as to whether or not you were calling any witnesses. Is that correct? All right. Well, how much time do you think you need? Is she here?
No, she's not. She is at a hotel. I can obviously.
Can you get her on the phone?
That would be without too much difficulty. If he wants, defense counsel wants Ms. Gutierrez present in person, that would probably take.
I think I'll give her the telephone.
Okay.
I thought I started the call, I guess I'll drop.
No, she's
All
not.
right. How much time do you guys think you need? I'll give you 15.
Sure.
All right. We're in recess.